Welcome into Bucs Insider. Casey Phillips here with staff writer Bree Dix. Scott Smith is on a well-earned vacation.
Yes.
So we get to have a Tampa 2 reunion here, which I love, and we have some fun stuff to get into, even though, of course, you drew a bit at the short straw of it being the dead time of the off-season. But still plenty of new awesome things to talk about going on. First of all, we've finished all of the rookies signing, which is a great thing. And so tell us about the latest signee that completed the picture.
Yes, excited. So the Bucs first-round pick, Graham Barton, officially inked his deal with the Buccaneers. And I'm just excited for him, what he's going to bring to this offensive line. Was taking first-team reps throughout the offseason workouts, kind of leading into training camp. But he's a guy that just kind of brings that finisher mentality that this Bucs brass covets. And then he just kind of has all of the things that you want in an offensive lineman. He primarily played and was a 3-year starter at left tackle, so he'll move inside to center. But coming in, he just had that position flexibility, had spent time at center during his true freshman season, and then just has that balance, the body control, the toughness, the core strength. So excited to see what he does during training camp and to see some of those one-on-one drills take shape.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. One-on-ones with offensive and defensive line is my favorite part of training camp.
Highlight,
hands down,
always.
every year. And also, you and I are going to be doing several shameless plugs throughout this episode, which I am not upset about. My first one will be that we're shooting an episode of The Bay with Graham Barton this afternoon. And so I'm really excited. We're going to get into him as the position changes, coming to a new city, so many different things. So very excited about that. Also, so we've talked a little bit about how the Bucs definitely have more primetime games this year than last year. Finally getting a little more respect. Still not enough, I don't think, but we got more of the prime time.
Casey.
And another way that they're going to be on some quote unquote prime time is they will end up being briefly on Hard Knocks. Tell us why that is.
Yes, so the Bucs will face off against the Ravens in Week 7 Monday Night Football, and also the Ravens, along with the AFC North, will be getting the Hard Knocks treatment. So going to make a little cameo in that, but I mean, wow, just looking at, and that'll be one of those tough battles that the Bucs have on their 2024 slate. The Ravens last season really finished strong on both sides of the football. You had offensively, Lamar Jackson, MVP season, and pretty much finished in the top 5 in pretty much every quarterback metric. And then defensively, arguably they had their best defensive unit since the days of Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. So Mike McDonald's defense became the first in NFL history, which is baffling to me, to finish first in points allowed, sacks, and takeaways. The fact that that hasn't even happened since 2023 was a little staggering, and then you top that off looking at on the offensive side of the ball, they bring in a guy like Derrick Henry, and they've primarily kind of focused and relied on Lamar Jackson running the football, his elusiveness, and then kind of this unheralded group of running backs. But when you have Derrick Henry, you have a guy that can control the clock, can wear defenses down. He has that power, the physicality, the forward lean. So what he's going to be able to do for them and what he's going to be able to take kind of their run-first approach. And then also Nate Wiggins was a guy that I think was exciting, the rookie that they picked up. And, I mean, just his recovery speed, his quick close on the ball, on throws. So I'm excited to kind of see what they're able to do, and then that'll be a big matchup for the Bucs this upcoming season.
I always remember when we did joint practices with the Titans at one point, and people saw Derrick Henry for the first time in person, and it was very funny to watch people's faces as he walked by, and everyone just going, and everybody said if you didn't know who he was, you would 100% expect him to be a defensive lineman.
Yes.
If you had no idea, and they said, what position is that guy?
Yes.
Running back is not it. That's not what you would imagine. It's pretty wild.
I feel like next to the term, like, compact build, it just needs to be Derrick Henry's photograph.
That's his face. So, as we talk about, this is kind of the dead time of year between the mandatory minicamp and before training camp starts. This is where we really start taking a look ahead towards training camp, and for me especially, those position battles where every year, whether it's starters or roster positions, either way, you always have some battles going on. So for you, I know we have a couple different areas that are really interesting, and I'm sure you probably agree with wide receiver to me is so interesting. Not like we don't know Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Yeah. After that, though, it's a really interesting thing to see who's going to be in what role, what ways maybe the new special teams rules are going to influence that. There's just so many interesting storylines of after those two guys, new offensive coordinator, new offense, maybe a little bit different things even for Chris Godwin. So where do you see that group rounding out in terms of the numbers, the number 3 guy after that?
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see just that competition, like you mentioned, behind Mike Evans, behind Chris Godwin, whether it's Trey Palmer that steps up, whether it's Sterling Shepard, the offseason acquisition, who has that familiarity with Baker Mayfield, has kind of that inside-outside versatility, or is it a guy like Jalen McMillan that they picked up in the draft, who, again, kind of has that long-strided speed. He has a good ability to kind of bait coverages with the fakes, with the leverage, has that stop-start capability. And then also, I think, for me, outside linebacker is going to end up being also a key battle that I'm going to be watching, because you have, again, Yaya Diaby, just the season that he was able to have during his rookie year, has the power, the explosion, led the Bucs in sacks, led all rookies in tackles for loss, and just kind of is able to quickly generate separation at the point of attack. And then I actually just got back from Atlanta doing a story on him that will go out before training camp, kind of doing some interviews with his family. But one of the things that I think he's really working on throughout this offseason is harnessing that power, that explosion into kind of a vast repertoire of moves. And like Todd Bowles have said, kind of when they drafted him, it was more for what he was going to be able to do against the run and setting the edge. And then when they put him out there in sub packages, kind of the ability that he was able to show and kind of that improvement as a pass rusher, you know, he earned that starting role, and to kind of see what he's able to add to kind of his repertoire. And then also the competition with guys like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, with Anthony Nelson, and then the guy that they drafted, Chris Braswell, in the second round. And one of the things I loved about him coming out of Alabama was he could have easily entered the transfer portal, started somewhere else, but instead he stayed with the team that had faith in him, that they had committed to him, and then ended up, it paid dividends. He had an incredible 2023 season. And just, I think for me too, during that pre-draft process, was seeing his pass rush approach. He's a guy that didn't kind of just go out there aimlessly. He had a tactical approach in his mind of how to beat the opposition, whether it was different speed variations, whether it was the angles, variety of moves. So I'm really excited to see kind of what he's able to bring and kind of the new dimension that he can bring to some of these pressure packages that we know Todd Bowles loves to use.
Yes, for sure. All right, and we'll close with this, our final shameless plug of the day that we talked about, the Bay episode, what you have going on with Yaya. We also had our first Bay episode air this last week. We wanted to give people a quick look at it in case they haven't seen the full thing online. We talked about the wide receivers. Chris Godwin, this guy, I just think there are so many fun stories to tell about him, both on the field and off the field, that he's such an introspective guy. Yeah. He's got some, he does a lot of community work. Yeah. He's very into like taking care of his body and his mind. And then he and his wife also have a hobby that I think a lot of people may not know that they have. So let's take a quick look at this Bay preview. I feel silly that there was a part of me that got nervous about you dropping your camera, and then I'm like, no, it's Chris. Why am I worried about him dropping something?
I've been shooting for a couple of years now, probably like 4 or 5 years, like in the off seasons mostly. And the progress like that I've seen in the last couple of years, it has me really excited about it. I'm pretty gassed up about it.
Is that hard for you, being so elite at what you do as a profession, to start something else new and have to start from scratch?
The very beginning?
Yeah. All right, so that was just a quick look. I know part of it also, we end up talking about the famous now Air Godwin photo, where he looks like he's about to go dunk onto the goalposts. We talked about that, and we just talked about overall the way that he feels like the mental side of the game and his approach to life, his approach to football, his approach to photography are all sort of tied together. Really incredible thing. Just a great guy. Really enjoyed talking to him. So if you want to see the full thing, you can check it out on the Buccaneers YouTube. And I know we're also really excited to see the full Yaya piece that you're doing both written and video for coming up soon. So Bree, thank you so much for being a guest host, taking in for Scott Smith this week. We really appreciated it.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right, that's going to do it for us on Bucs Insider. We'll see you next time.